Hello and welcome to How to Deal with Grief and Trauma. My name is Natalie Himmelrich. How to Deal with Grief and Trauma is completely self-funded, produced and edited by me, Natalie Himmelrich. Consider making a small donation to support the podcast. Go to bit.ly/support, capital G, capital T, and podcast. I repeat, bit.ly/supportgt podcast. Thank you so much. And for more information, please visit Natalie's website, join the podcast Instagram page, and subscribe to the newsletter to receive updates on future episodes. Welcome to this special series on the many phases of trauma. In each episode, we'll explore one trauma type in a clear, gentle way, what it is, how it can show up in daily life, and one more step that can help your nervous system feel a little safer. Nothing here is meant to diagnose you, and you're always invited to take what fits and leave the rest. And because this is trauma work, we'll end every episode with a short grounding practice you can do anywhere. Today we're talking about attachment and relational trauma, how safety in connection gets shaped, and how wounds in relationship can affect the nervous system long after the relationship has ended or changed. This will be general and non-graphic. If you notice activation or shutdown, you're invited to pause, breathe, and come back when you feel ready. So why relational trauma can be so confusing? Relational trauma is often harder to name than event-based trauma, because it doesn't always come from one clear incident. Sometimes it's not what someone did once, but it is what happened over time. For example, inconsistency or emotional absence, unpredictable responses, or being shamed for needs, or being loved conditionally, or feeling unsafe to be yourself in closeness. And because humans are wired for connection, relationship wounds land deeply. A painful pattern I hear often is, I had a roof and I had food and my family wasn't that bad. Why do I struggle so much in relationship now? And this episode is an answer to that question, without blame and without minimizing. So let's have a look at what attachment is and why it matters. Attachment isn't about being needy. Attachment is how a child's nervous system learns to feel safe, to know if someone will be there when they're distressed, whether their emotions are welcome, whether they matter, whether they can be themselves and still belong. So if any of those questions trigger something in you or activate something in you, listen deeply. So the questions would be, am I safe? Will someone come when I'm distressed? Are my emotions welcome? Do I matter? Can I be myself and still belong? As I've mentioned before, in early life, we regulate through co-regulation. And this is by a caregiver's face, voice, rhythm, and responsiveness. So as a baby, you cannot regulate yourself and will learn to regulate through this co-regulation with mostly mom. So attachment isn't just physiological, it's biological. It's nervous system education through relationship. So when there's enough safety, a child's system tends to develop a deeper expectation of connection is available, needs can be met, and repair is possible. But when safety is inconsistent, absent, or frightening, the nervous system adapts differently. And those adaptations can continue into adulthood, not because something is wrong with you, but because your system learned a set of rules for survival. What exactly is attachment and relational trauma? Attachment and relational trauma refers to wounds formed through relationships where safety, stability, and emotional attunement were not reliably available. This may include emotional neglect, so where needs are consistently missed, chronic criticism or humiliation, or if a caregiver is unpredictable, like for example warm in one moment but rejecting the next, or in cases of parentification, which is when a child becomes the emotional caretaker, or if there's exposure to ongoing conflict without protection, or if there's betrayal within a close bond, or repeated ruptures with no repair. So important nuance here is not every rupture is trauma. Rupture is normal, but repair is what builds security. So relational trauma often involves rupture without repair, or a system where the child learns, my feelings make people leave, or I have to perform to keep love, I can't rely on anyone, and closeness is dangerous. And just to make the differentiation between attachment relational and developmental trauma, here are a few words, but more in the next episode, which is dedicated to that. So developmental trauma is the wider landscape. This is where chronic early stress shapes the whole system across development. I talked about that in more detail in episode 65 and 66. Now, attachment relational trauma is one major pathway within that landscape. So it is what happens when the bond itself is where safety breaks down or isn't reliably there. If development trauma is the whole blueprint, today we're looking specifically at the relationship wiring, how the bond shapes the nervous system, and what repair can look like. Imagine someone who becomes deeply anxious when their partner is quiet. If a message goes unanswered, their mind starts racing. They feel a wave of panic. I've done something wrong. They're pulling away. I'm going to be abandoned. They might overtext, apologize repeatedly, or try to fix a problem that hasn't even been spoken. Or on the other side, they might go into the opposite, which is shut down, go cold, withdraw, or act like they don't care, while their body is bracing inside. In both cases, the nervous system isn't responding to the present moment alone. It's responding to an older template. Connection isn't reliable. And the body moves into protection to prevent pain. One of my personal examples is my relationship with my dad. He had a kind of humor that as a child, I wasn't really sure if it was actually humor or if he was serious. And what happened if he would say something, I would laugh, and then he would get really mad and say, this isn't funny, this is serious. But then if another case was something funny and I didn't laugh, he said, why didn't you laugh? This was humorous. So this connection and what he was saying wasn't reliable for me. I couldn't read into what he was actually meaning. So let's have a look at it through the polyvagal lens and why connection can trigger protection. So here's why the polyvagal-informed lens is so helpful and why I love it. We often think danger comes from outside, a threat, a loud sound, a risky situation. But for many people with relational trauma, closeness itself becomes a cue of danger. So why is that? It is because the nervous system learns through repeated experience. For example, when I get close, I get hurt. Or when I need something, I get shamed. Or when I relax, something changes. So the system may respond to intimacy with mobilized protection, anxiety, clinging, anger, controlling behavior, jealousy, or shutdown protection, numbness, avoidance, disappearing, or I don't need anyone. This is why relational trauma can look like contradiction. I want closeness, and I feel unsafe in closeness. And that push-pull is not character, it's a nervous system strategy. And the goal is not to shame the strategy, the goal is to help the system learn safe connection exists now. So let's have a look at common patterns, a few common ways that relational trauma can show up. For example, in emotions, when intense shame is felt after conflict, or where there is fear of being too much or not enough, or rapid swings between longing and anger, or having difficulty trusting kindness. In behavior, it is people-pleasing or fawning, over-explaining or over-apologizing, controlling to reduce uncertainty, withdrawing, ghosting, or going silent, and difficulty setting boundaries or rigid boundaries as an armor. In the body, it can be sensed as tight chest, throat during conflict, nausea when someone is disappointed, insomnia after relational stress, freeze response when you need to speak. In meaning making, you might have sentences in your head saying, I have to earn love, or I'm only as good as I do, which I have, or if I'm real, I'll be rejected, I'm responsible for other people's feelings, or I can't rely on anyone. If any of this is familiar or feels familiar again, not because you're broken, because your nervous system learned rules for survival. And these are quite early rules. So stay curious when you go through life and see how you, in your side of yourself, see the world. So what helps? Relational trauma often heals through relational experiences alongside nervous system support. Here are a few steady starting points. Number 1, name the state, not the story. So for example, instead of I'm too needy, try my nervous system is in mobilized protection. Or instead of I don't care, try my nervous system is shutting down. Number 2, practice repair language. Repair doesn't require perfect partners, it requires a willingness. So simple phrases like, I'm activated, I need a minute. Or, I care about us, but I'm struggling right now. Or, can we pause and come back? These sentences will help not to go straight into your automatic nervous system response, but to give you some space in between. And number 3 is to build safety through predictability. So small consistencies create nervous system trust. For example, clear plans, follow through, honest expectations, gentle transitions after conflict. And number 4, choose one safe connection. It might be in therapy, a trusted friend, a support group, somewhere your nervous system can experience being held without performing. And if you're supporting someone with relational trauma, your steadiness matters more than perfect words. Again, tone, pace, and a non-defensive language and listening skill are often the perfect way to be the perfect intervention if you want. So now let's go into our grounded practice. In this one, we'll learn about a boundary breath and a gentle no. So this practice is designed specifically for relational trauma and boundaries without being confrontational or intense. Step 1. Find your edge. Sit back slightly or feel the boundary of the chair behind you and let your body register support exists. If you're standing, you might just feel your spine and sense as if you're held up by your spine. And then step 2, the boundary breath. Inhale gently and imagine making a little more space inside your ribs. And exhale and imagine a soft boundary around your body like a calm edge, not a wall. And we'll do 4 rounds. So inhale gently and imagine making a little more space inside your ribs. And then exhale. Imagine a soft boundary around your body like a calm edge. And you might like to use your hands for that, so breathe in again. And then again. Space in your hips. Boundary around your body. Calm edge. The last one, breathe in. And exhale. And then step 3, whisper a gentle no. Very softly, out loud or in your mind, say, no, not that. And you might like your hands as a boundary if you want. So, no, not that. And then add, yes, this. For example, it can be, no, not rushing. Yes, one breath. Find an example that fits for you. I'll give you some space. And step 4, one supportive sentence. Say, I can be connected and still have boundaries. I can be connected and still have boundaries. And notice if your shoulders drop, if your breath changes, or if you feel even 1% more inside yourself. So if you'd like support as you listen through this series, check my website for the free resources offered for both those affected by trauma and grief and those supporting them. Choose what fits your pace. In the next episode, we'll build on this with developmental trauma, how repeated early stress shapes patterns over time, and how healing can be approached in small, doable steps. Until then, take care. Thanks for listening to How to Deal with Grief and Trauma. If you'd like to be updated on future episodes, please subscribe to my newsletter on nataliehimmelrich.com. If you need grief support, please contact me for a 30 minutes free discovery session. How to Deal with Grief and Trauma is produced and edited by me, Natalie Himmelrich. To support this podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe to or follow the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you. And remember to keep breathing. I promise it will get easier.